All right, since I have the microphone now, I need two things from you real quick. I need you guys to promise me that you'll talk back with me. Just don't stare at me like I'm an idiot for the next hour, okay? I like when people laugh, cry with me, all of those things. And then secondly, you guys want to hear a funny story about David Bradshaw? This should be good. Okay, so on the note of prayer and fasting, I showed up here, for those of you who don't know who I am, in like 2010. We had an internship, we had a house of prayer, and I showed up, this broken frat boy from the deep south, and put on my first pair of skinny jeans, and I was never the same. And so, anyway, so we started campus ministry around like 2011, 2012, and we were doing these crazy, it was just amazing what we saw God doing all over the nation on the East Coast. We would pack a van full of 20, or actually, I don't even know how big the vans were. We'd pack the van full of a bunch of smelly 20-year-olds. We'd go to college campuses. We'd preach the gospel. We'd do worship nights. We saw healing. One night we were down in Virginia Tech, and we felt like the Lord said he wanted to do healing. And so we said, if you are sick or you need any healing, come to the front. This huge, like 6'5", 300-pound man comes like running toward me, and I'm like, oh, Lord, help. I'm not 6'5", and I'm not 300 pounds, and he could crush me. And it's one of the football players from Virginia Tech. He gets healed. 3 of his football partners get healed, and this like wave goes through the room of these 3 football players encountering God, praying for people getting healed. So it was like that for a couple years where we just had these wild encounters. So this one time, David and I went down to North Carolina to, we were really meeting this group for the first time, and it was in the middle of a 21-day fast we were doing as a community. And so David's speaking at whatever conference, and the guys that were down there visiting come to me, and they're like, hey, where does David like to eat? And we're like on the way down there, me and the other guy that are with David, we're starving. We're like, dude, like, I know we're fasting, but it's a trip. Like, we should be allowed to break our fast during the trip. And he's like, no, whatever, we're drinking water or whatever we're doing. I don't know. But I made that part up, so whatever. But it helps the story. So these guys come up to me and they go, where does David like to eat? And I'm like, this is it. This is my moment. I was like, he loves Chick-fil-A. I'm like, if I can get him in Chick-fil-A, I know I can get him to break his fast, and then I can eat. And so they take us, they go, hey, Dave, we're going to Chick-fil-A. So we all go to Chick-fil-A. They all order chicken, all the, chicken, what you get at Chick-fil-A. And then David looks at me and the other guy again, and he goes, I know what you guys did. And he walks up to the counter, and he goes, I'll take a bowl of shredded carrots. And we're like, oh, my gosh. So we go, we'll take a bowl of shredded carrots as well. So we go sit down with these ministry leaders, and it's literally, we said, he loves Chick-fil-A, and we all sit down with a bowl of shredded carrots. And it was like, they're just looking at us like, these idiots, like, do they come to Chick-fil-A just to eat carrots? Like, I don't know. So then on the way home, we convinced him to stop by Sonic and get jalapeno poppers, which is a part of a Daniel fast. Just want to throw that out there. Jalapeno poppers definitely count as a Daniel fast. No meat. No meat. So there you go. If you're looking to do this 21-day fast, just jalapeno poppers, some shredded carrots from Chick-fil-A, you should be good. All right, so like I said, I showed up 2010, and just kind of this broken kid looking for really just anything, just looking for an answer. And I felt, I walked in after years of searching and stumbled into this prayer room. I had no idea who Mike Bickle was, no idea who Bill Johnson was. And in a moment, I encountered someone way beyond Mike Bickle and Bill Johnson. I encountered Jesus. And the person that I had been looking for, the answer I'd been looking for, was in front of me that changed everything for me. And it changed my life. It changed everything about me. I got to help lead all of these years, lead these movements of just these wild things on campuses here in our community. We had a few years with me and Aaron Costello and David where we were just plowing for Student Awakening. And I feel like as a young 20-year-old, I feel like my heart was that I love Jesus with all of my heart. I wanted God more than anything, but second to that, I wanted fathers and mothers who would pour into me, who would help me steward the dreams that were in my heart. And I felt like there was this tension between millennials and the older generation that was this like, there was always this unspoken beef between us. And the older generation was going, We just want them to listen to us. We want to be able to father and mother them. And millennials going, we want that too. We want you to reach out to us and spend time with us and pour into our life. But it just never landed. And we were, for a long time, there was just a group of us young 20-year-olds trying to figure it out on our own because we just could never land anywhere with that. And so I feel like in a lot of ways, this message that I prepared this morning is something I wish I could have preached for myself when I was 20 years old. I wish that I could have preached to an older generation. I feel like now that I'm 30, I turned 30 last year, so I heard it's all downhill from here. And now that I'm 30 and I have kids, that all the older than 30 was like, no, it's not. All the youth are like, oh my gosh, 30, he's almost dead. So I wish that this is a message I wish that I could have preached to the older generation as a young 20-year-old going, we want you, we need you, please help us. And so I just want to ask this morning that we really come into this with an open heart. I don't want to throw any accusations at any group. I just really want God this morning. So if we could, let's just pray together. Father, we ask you this morning for your presence. God, we ask you for our nation. God, we ask you for our youth. God, we ask you for Gen Z. God, that you would break in. God, more than anything, that you would show them your beauty, show them who they are, and show them who you are. God, we ask you for the fathers and mothers, those who for years have labored, those who for years have served you and loved you. God, we ask you this morning that you would help us all, that we would grow together, that we would see Malachi 4, that we would see fathers and sons, daughters and mothers coming together. Oh, God, we're hungry for you this morning. God, we just ask you to break in. God, more than anything else, God, more than my message, more than my notes, God, we ask you that you and your presence would come this morning. God, I ask you to give us open hearts for the things we need to change. God, help us to see you. Oh, God, help us to see you. In Jesus' name, amen. Listen, a few weeks ago, David shared that article that was written, and I think it's something that we respond to, but I wanted to this morning also share a different side of Gen Z that I've come to know, and in a lot of ways, I'm jealous of Gen Z and the opportunities that they have and the world that they grow up in. But I just wanted to state some things real quick before we get into the actual message. And this was done, by the way, consulting all of our resident Gen Zs around here. Had tons of conversations just trying to figure out what life is like growing up for them. So, number one, they aren't on Facebook. You Facebook people. I logged out 2 years ago. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. Gen Z's not on Facebook. They're on Instagram and TikTok. They don't fight with people that they disagree with. One of the reasons I logged out of Facebook is all the arguing. It's just like, oh my goodness. And TikTok, I scroll through TikTok, and there's like, I'm trying to think of an example. There's a kid with a MAGA hat on that's like Trump 2020, and then all the comments are like, Trump 2020, Trump 2020. There's no arguing. Then the next one is a video of like, this liberal kid at a college stating some opinion, and all the comments are like, yeah, you go girl, you do it, whatever. And there's no arguing. And I just realized that they're not concerned with shoving their opinions down each other's throats. They don't agree with you, they move on. In a lot of ways, a lot of us can learn from that. They're smart, they're creative, they have options. I think if you could boil down a lot of what I'm going to share this morning is that they have options. More than any other generation, they have options. As a millennial myself growing up, Facebook and YouTube came out when I was in middle school. And then Instagram came out. I just saw someone go, ooh. One of the Gen Z, oh my gosh, he is ancient. Instagram came out when I was in college. And so for a lot of us that were millennials, we had these dreams, these desires, these things, like my friends starting travel accounts on Instagram, starting these vlogs on YouTube. But a lot of us didn't know how to make money off of this yet. We were just trying to pursue our dreams. So for millennials, a lot of us had to choose, Do we pursue our passion with no money, or do we grow up and get a career and figure things out? Things are completely different. Your kid, our Gen Z, can start a YouTube account or stream video games and make more money than celebrities make. Like, it can be a career right now. There are people running huge marketing agencies that never step foot in a college classroom to learn about marketing. We have the information. The internet was the great equalizer for us. And so our kids are growing up with options. And one of my fears is that the world and a lot of these big companies understand that to gain the attention of the next generation, you have to go after what they want to go after. And in a lot of ways, I feel like the church has put a stamp in the ground and goes, we're not giving into the world. And we're losing our stake in the ground for the next generation. I helped a church plant after we left here in 2015. And one of the wisest things I heard from the pastor at that church plant, he was like, because we were wrestling through, I went from this church to a church that did like 20-minute worship, 30-minute preaching. It was very by the book. And I was wrestling. I had a real wrestle in my heart of, oh my goodness, what does church look like? What's allowed in the church? And I just went to him one day. I was like, I'm really struggling with this. I don't know what is biblical, what's not. And he sat with me and he said, I want to tell you something. Our main message has to be this, that the gospel never changes, but the vehicle in which it is delivered is what changes. Every generation receives the gospel in a new way. We can't change the person of Christ and him going to the cross and being crucified, opening up a spot for us in eternity, but we can change how we communicate it to the next generation. For Gen Z, there is no black and white, there's no sacred, there's no secular. It's just what it is. One of my main problems with messages I've heard preached from different groups is this very extreme mentality of, if you want to love God, this is what you must do. You must do this internship. Or if you love God, you must quit your desires and you must go to the nations. Or if you love God, then you must quit doing this and do this one specific thing. And I got to tell you, if that's our message, any one specific thing, we're going to lose them. Gen Z doesn't see it as what's sacred and what's secular. They want to know how they can start a business and preach the gospel and be a light in their business, in their community. They want to know how they can be a YouTuber and be a light to the gospel inside the YouTube world. We need to teach our kids that if they become famous and they go to Hollywood, how to love God in the midst of that culture. I want to read something to you guys. I've been in campus ministry for a while, and I had some friends send me this article that I wanted to read, because I've been feeling really burdened. Ever since David read that article, I've been feeling really burdened of, maybe I'm just out of touch, and it's a really big deal, and I'm really concerned. My friend sent me this article, and I thought it was really eye-opening, so I'm just going to read this real quick, and then we're going to open our Bibles. This is an article that was written by a pastor about the spiritual climate in America during the 1800s, right before the Second Great Awakening. And I was pretty blown away because I've never read any of this stuff in the history books. He says, not many people realize that in the wake of the American Revolution, there was a moral slump. Drunkenness was an epidemic. Out of the population of 5 million Americans, 300,000 were confirmed drunkards. Profanity was of the most shocking kind. For the first time in the history of American settlement, women were afraid to go out at night for fear of assault. Bank robberies were a daily occurrence. What about the church? They were losing members more than they were gaining. The Chief Justice of the U.S., John Marshall, wrote to the Bishop of Virginia, James Madison, that the church was too far gone to ever be redeemed. Christianity will be forgotten in 30 years, is what he said. This is the 1800s. Take the liberal art colleges at the time. A poll taken at Harvard discovered there was not one believer in the whole student body. They took a poll at Princeton, which was a much more evangelical place, where they discovered that 2 believers, I need that, so hold on a second. 2 believers at Princeton, there were 2 believers at Princeton out of the whole student body, and only 5 that did not belong to the filthy speech movement of the day. Students rioted. They held mock communion at Williams College. They put on anti-Christian plays at Dartmouth. They burned down the chapel at Princeton, and they forced the resignation of the president of Harvard. They took Bibles out onto the street in New Jersey and burned them in a public bonfire. Christians were so few on campus that in the 1970s, they met in secret like a communist cell. in New England, there was a man of prayer named Isaac. I'm not even going to say his last name. I have no idea how to pronounce that. A Baptist pastor, when the conditions were at their worst, he addressed an urgent plea for revival to pastors of every Christian denomination in the U.S. Churches knew that their backs were to the wall. All the churches adopted a plan. They set aside the first Monday of each month to pray and fast, and it was not long after that when the Second Great Awakening started. I don't know about you guys, but I had no idea. Did anyone know about that? I see one. Okay. Scott, of course Scott knew. Yeah. I mean, I had no idea. I read that last night. I've been preparing this message for a few weeks, and I read that last night, and I felt this hope for America that I've never felt before. This faith for Gen Z that I've never felt before. I mean, we're nowhere near that. It's not even close to that on colleges right now. Not yet, at least. Two things that'll change Gen Z and the nation. First is Jesus. The second is community. The biggest burden I have right now is that we have to show them who God is. We have to show them Jesus. Just like myself, just like my story, stumbling into a prayer room, not knowing anything about anything in the Bible, finding God, discovering God, one encounter with God changed the rest of my life. I know probably dozens of you in this room today have a moment like that you can look back to and go, this was the moment that God changed everything for me. Right? Let's open up to Numbers chapter 21, verse 4. Numbers 21, verse 4. From Mount Hor, when they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, the people became impatient on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food, no water. We loathe this worthless food. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many of the people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole. And everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and he would live. I believe that we're in a moment right now in the United States and maybe even the world where we're not quite where that paper said that colleges were at in the 1800s. But we have a small window to respond. And just like in this passage, when the serpents were coming in and killing the people of Israel because they had sinned against God, he set a bronze serpent on a pole, and anyone that looked at it would be healed. I believe that bronze serpent on a pole is a representation of Jesus in America right now. That the one thing that can keep us from getting to where these colleges were in the 1800s is that we show a generation the beauty of Jesus. More than anything else, my biggest desire is that when we talk to Gen Z, when we talk to the next generation, they understand the beauty and the worth and the amazing person that is Jesus. And my concern right now is that when we go into the streets or we go to our youth group or we go anywhere else, we ask people, what is Christianity? What is God? They could give us a list of things that Christians hate. They could give us a list of things that God hates, but they couldn't tell us who he is and what he loves. And they couldn't tell us what he's like, that he's perfect, that he's blameless, that he's spotless, that he can come in and change your life in a moment. That doesn't matter where you've been, that he can give you hope for a future. They can't tell us, or can they tell us, have we shown them that he's the man who died on a cross so that we can live with him for eternity? Have we shown our youth that when you take on Christ, that it's not like you were a bad person and now you're a good person, but really you're still bad deep down. But we've shown them that really when Jesus comes in your life, he rips off the old garment. Your identity is not a sinner anymore. Anyone in here that's saved, your identity is not a sinner saved by grace. You are 100% saved and pure. When God looks at you, he can't tell where Jesus ends and you begin. He sees Jesus in you, and that's all he sees. Is that what our generation knows? Is that what they know about Jesus? Or do they only know the things that he hates? My fear, it's not even just in this church, my fear is that there's a whole generation that knows all the things he hates. But there's not a whole generation that's learned to stare at the beauty of Jesus, to fall in love with the one who can solve everything in their life, who can provide a hope and a future. That's my fear. It doesn't matter how dark it gets, there's always been one remedy. From Numbers to the 1800s till now, that one remedy is beholding the Lamb. That's the remedy. To behold the Lamb. He's the only thing that can fix it. He's the thing that can change everything for all of us. He's the thing that can change the course of this nation and where we're headed. Isaiah chapter 6. In this moment where Isaiah's having an encounter, he sees God in the throne room. He has an encounter. And the first words that come out of his mouth is, my eyes have seen the King. I believe that the anthem that's going to come from this next generation is not going to be one of, I can only do this, or I can only do that, or I can either be in ministry, or I can be in the marketplace. But they're going to say, my eyes have seen the King. It doesn't matter where I go or what I do or what I step into. It changes everything, and it's going to change everything around me. I believe that there's got to be an awakening in the next generation where their anthem, the thing that explodes out of their heart, is my eyes have seen the King. That's it. That's all we can do. I believe that how we get them in and what can change them is Jesus and only Jesus. Regardless of the marketing strategies or anything else that we come up with, Jesus is going to be the thing that brings them in and changes them. But here's my second biggest burden after have we shown them Jesus is how well do we do community? As long as I've been around, or as long as I've known, I'd say this generation values community and family more than any other generation. They don't want meetings with you. They want a relationship with you. This is where I'm pleading with fathers and mothers in this house. They don't want more meetings. They want to know that you care about them. They want to know that you care about their dreams and their desires. They want to know that whether they make a mistake or they're doing the right thing, that you're on their team. To Gen Z, I would say this, find your community. And to the rest of us, I would say we have to provide the community. Listen, Gen Z, most of you are back there, I think. There's one back there waving his hand. I see you. Listen, you guys have to find your community. You can fall in love with God, but without community, it will not sustain. Daniel chapter 1, Daniel is removed from his parents as a teenager, taken across the Middle East to a new country with a bunch of other young adults. He is offered things he's not allowed to have back in his homeland. And the only reason he makes it through that season is because he first saw God, and then he grabbed 3 bros around him, and they did it together. They held each other accountable. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 says, bad company corrupts good morals. I don't care how much you love God. If your company, if your friends are provide bad morals for you, or they are a stumbling block for you, you will not last. You will not make it. So I'm pleading with you this morning, find your friend group that pushes you more toward God. For the adults in the room, Gen Z has options. If we don't do community well, they will leave. They will go to someone who does it well. They will. They have options, and it's not a sin problem. They don't need to ask us for permission to leave our church. That's a weird thing anyway. They are just going to go somewhere else. And I believe we have something to offer here. And so we have to do the community part right. And this is not an indictment. I'm not saying we do it wrong, but we have to do it better. There's always growth. So I'm going to give you 3 things. Number 1, this is 3 things of how we can provide community for Gen Z. Number 1 is listen. We have to listen to them. They have new ideas. They're looking at the Bible. And when we bring our traditions and our opinions to them and mix it with things that are in the Bible, they don't know what's real, what's not real. When we preach to them our opinions and our traditions, they get confused. And then they say, show it to me in the Bible. And we can't because it's not in the Bible. We have to drop some of the opinions and traditions that we've had and go to the Bible. They will follow it if we can show them where it is in the Bible. Number 2 is empower them. Did you guys know that the majority of the prophets in the Old Testament were teenagers? Got to give them a stage. Got to give them a platform. That doesn't mean this stage or this platform, but something in your life that you can give to them to show them that you believe in them. Bring them alongside of you in your life. A guy I listen to says, you don't have to create space for the next generation in your life, but include them in your life. Listen, all of you are busy. All of us are busy. None of us have time to add another meeting or another activity to our life. Gen Z isn't asking you to do that. They're not asking you to carve out an hour to come get coffee. They're asking you, you're already going to a business meeting. You're already going to a ministry meeting. Bring me with you. Include me in your plans you already have. There we go. I just solved your time problem. You're already doing things. Include them. Bring them with you. Train them up, raise them. And then the third thing is disciple. This is what we all want to get to. They want you to disciple them. We need to disciple them. But you cannot get there if you don't provide 1 and 2. I'm just going to tell you. And even if you provide empowering, if you don't listen to them and get to know them, they'll leave when the next opportunity comes along. All of this starts with number 1, building a relationship, listening to them, empowering them, and discipling them. Listen, we need you. I need you. My kids need you. Our youth group needs you. And I'm asking us to set the bar, to raise the bar a little bit on how we do community and inviting people. Everyone here has a place. Everyone here has a gift from God. He's gifted you with. And there are places that you can put that here to use it. Look, if you care about the next generation, every Sunday morning, there's a group of 100 kids that are in the back hallway that we don't know all of their stories. We don't know who has a good family life, who doesn't. There are some of you that are the Lord's called to be preachers, and your training ground is going to be in the 3- and 4-year-old classroom. To find your voice, to find your message, to pour into a generation, and to help them so that they can be raised in a healthy culture in our church. It bleeds over into everything. It's not just kids ministry, youth. I bet Sebastian would love some more help. Our Susan Miller is heading up our greeting team and our ushers and things that we're building out here. We need you. We need, when Gen Z walks into our church, they see someone smiling at them in the lobby, praying for them. We need it. We need you to be involved. Worship team, you guys can come on up. I just want to ask us this morning that we do 2 things, that we commit to providing a culture and a community here where Jesus is the priority. It's number 1, not our opinions, not our traditions. Number 1 is Jesus. And then the second thing is we build a healthy community where all of us run together. Listen, Malachi 4, fathers turning to sons, sons turning to fathers. Listen, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Fathers, you're the adults. It's our job first to reach out to the kids and build that relationship. Even when they're being snotty and they think they know it all, it's our job, right? My kids, 5, 3, and 1. We play hide and seek a lot. Like David said this morning, I know where they're hiding. I could easily sit there and be like, nope, it's your job to come to me. Sons have to come to the fathers too. It's not going to work. And hide and seek, the same way God pursued me is the way I pursue my kids. That I'm coming after them and I'm going to find them because guess what? When they look at me and they see that they can trust me even with small things, then they know they can trust me with big things. Last week, my daughter made a mistake at school. And she said a bad word. She said stupid at school. And I got a note about it. And so I got home and Emily's like, Haven, go talk to your dad. Tell him what you said. And in that moment, I was like, not that I really care about the word stupid, to be honest with you. It's on my list of things you don't say. But trying to be a good dad, know what to do. I realized in that moment, I had an opportunity. I could come in like a disappointed father with a scowl on my face. You messed up, which she already knew she messed up. Or I could come to her and go, hey, listen, it's going to be okay. You made a mistake. We're going to move on. Because I know when she's 16 years old and she has harder things to talk to me about, she needs to find a safe place to come and talk to me. And I'm asking you, can we provide a safe place for Gen Z to come in and ask the hard questions that they haven't been allowed to ask? Let's stand together. I want to pray. I want to pray first for Gen Z and then second for fathers and mothers, and then we're just going to open up the front for a little bit. Father, we ask you this morning for this next generation. God, we ask you to break in to their lives. God, we ask you to provide communities and safe places, that you would provide the family structure in our community, and we ask you to open their eyes to the King. Father, we ask you this morning, come on, just pray with me for a second. God, we ask you this morning that their anthem would be, my eyes have seen the King. God, above all else, above structures and organization and marketing strategies, we ask you to fascinate them with the beauty of Jesus. And God, we ask you for the fathers and mothers, both in the natural and both spiritually in our community. God, we ask you to help us. God, we ask you to break our box of what community has looked like, and we ask you to set a new standard. God, help us. God, we ask that it wouldn't be the big companies and the marketing companies that would get the next generation, that it wouldn't be the management agencies in LA that would get the next generation. God, we ask you that the churches and our living rooms would be filled with Gen Z. God, we ask you to help us steward them. In Jesus' name. Listen, I just want to invite, if you're in Gen Z and you're like, I just want more of God. I just want to know who he is. I want him to touch me. I want to invite you to come up. And then any fathers and mothers, I just want us to surround them. So right now, if you're, let's say 25 and younger, and you're like, I just want God. I want to know him. I'm hungry for him. We're going to open up the front. And then secondly, fathers and mothers, everyone else, we all need to fall in love with God. We can't give them something we don't have. I just want to open up the front. Just want to open up the front for you. If you're like, I need help, both parents, I need help, or if you're like, I just want to see Jesus rightly, I want to ask you to come to the front. Let's just do this as a moment together. Listen, this is no group against the other group. We just need each other. We need God to be magnified in this generation, and we need each other. Come on, we got some youth up here. If we could get some of the prayer teams, some of the fathers and mothers, just to surround them. We need God in our midst.
I just want to say, as we're praying.